Welcome to episode 43 of the Rescued by Dragons fantasy fiction podcast, Tales of the Brunch Club. My name is Brian Messmer, and I'm not only your storyteller, but the dungeon master behind the homebrew Dungeons & Dragons campaign this adventure is based on. Please join me as I tell the tale of how my players and the dice ruined and improved my perfectly laid plans. But first, a quick recap. In episode 42, Jory and Salas fought the pirates aboard the Rod's Curse. The rest of the Brunch Club, along with Captain Tahard and some of Wheaton's town guard, commandeered a boat and gave chase. Drusilla gave Alora a potion of climbing, which she used to scale the ship's mast. From her perch atop the sails, she killed the rest of the pirates with accurate and lethal shots from her longbow. The smaller ship caught up to them, and they secured the Rod's Curse. Diasa found a chest in the captain's quarters and picked the lock. She found several gems and an oil of slipperiness, as well as enchanted crossbow bolts. After bringing the boat back to Wheaton, they salvaged 5 cannons, which Jory taught the townsfolk how to use. After another magic goose sighting, the Brunch Club, along with the guards and able-bodied citizens who stayed behind to defend Wheaton, began their watch. A full day and night went by without any sign of the Knoll warband. Through a scrying spell, Saberhagen discovered the warband was still marching west, long after they should have arrived at Wheaton. While they tried to figure out what was going on, Rajat appeared outside the town gates and called for Alora. He accused her of avoiding him and demanded to know the secret of returning to the Feywild. If she did not get him back to the Feywild within 2 weeks, trade meat would burn to the ground. Alora decided to leave the safety of the town walls and go out to meet Rajat, face to face. And now, Chapter 43, The Plain Truth. Alora ran to the city gates, the Brunch Club on her heels. "I'm going out to meet him," she said to them. "We're coming with you," Jory insisted. "Fine," she relented. "Just stay behind and don't look aggressive," she said as she took off in a dash through the snow. "Diasa, maybe you should stay here," Jory said before dashing after Alora. Drusilla and Salas ran out after Jory, while Diasa stood and wondered how she could help from so far away. Then she saw the nearby cannon and smiled. As Alora got within a couple 100 feet of Rajat, she slowed down to approach him with more caution. "So, Alora," Rajat bellowed, "I see I've finally got your attention," he added with a snarl. Who are you?" Alora asked. "Don't toy with me," Rajat screamed angrily. No, it's true," Jory said, panting as he caught up to them. "She has no memory. She doesn't even know who she is." Rajat scowled at the halfling, then stared at Alora through narrow eyes, considering her. "So my name means nothing to you, Alora Riverleaf?" he said. "My last name's Riverleaf?" asked Alora. "Cool name," Jory said. Alora shot Jory a "can you be quiet for just 1 second" look, and asked Rajat, "How do I know you?" "We met when you and those fools in your obsidian watch found me in the Bloodwood." "What were we doing there?" Alora asked. "I don't know," the druid snapped. "That was 100 years ago. All I care about right now is you getting me back to the Feywild." "I don't know how to do that," Alora said. "Well then, trade meat burns," Rajat scowled. I think I know someone who can tell me how to get you back to the Feywild," Alora said. I'll find a way to get you back if you call off the attack on trade meat." "I can try, but once a Flind gets on the warpath, their bloodlust is hard to cool. But even if they do burn down trade meat, I'll make sure that's as far as they go," he said without a word of pity. "All right," Alora sighed with reluctant resignation. "I'll help you." "How can I trust you?" Rajat said. "Give me something I know you'll come back for. Something precious to you." Alora took off her winter wolf cloak and handed it to him. "It's enchanted. I'll be back for it." Rajat took it from her and nodded. Before he transformed into an elk and disappeared into the forest, he turned back to her and said sadly, "I thought we had something, Alora." Drusilla and Salas caught up to them as Alora and Jory watched Rajat depart. "What happened?" asked Drusilla eagerly. "Tell us everything." "I'll tell you over brunch," Alora said. "I need a drink." Once back within the walls, they realized there was no tavern to get brunch at, as the town had been evacuated. They went to the aviary, where they could send carrier pigeons to trade meat to warn them of the Knoll attack 2 weeks away. More pigeons were sent to Elnor to let Solania know the threat against Wheaton was over and update her on the direction of the Knoll warband. Diesa suggested that they break into one of the taverns and make breakfast on their own, but the group convinced her that they should just go back to their lighthouse and eat there. Joy prepared brunch, while Alora filled them in on the exchange with Rajat and what she'd agreed to, and the disturbing fact that they were still going to have to fight the Knolls. "How are we going to find out about getting Rajat to the Feywild?" Diesa asked. There's a great big library we can teleport to," Salas pointed out. "What about Saberhagen? Would he know?" Joy asked. The group decided all of these were worth a try. The black cat looked up from the counter as the Brunch Club entered his magic emporium. "Well, if it isn't the bringers of false news," he greeted them sarcastically. "How do you know we didn't just scare them off?" Diesa asked. "I've met you," Saberhagen answered dryly. "Hey, we were going off your scrying visions," Alora reminded him. "And why are you still here? I thought you'd fled to your litter box by now." "Did you think," Saberhagen purred condescendingly, "I wasn't going to listen in when a druid shows up outside the gates and starts calling your name?" "So you heard all that?" Drusilla asked. "Yes, I did," confirmed Saberhagen. "And wow, that was messed up. So, can you help us get him back to the Feywild?" There's no specific way to the Feywild," he told them. "Travel between planes is a very tricky proposition, and not in any way straightforward." The group responded only with blank stares. "Do you know about the planes?" he asked. "I know there are planes," Drusilla said. "Do you know what plane we're on right now?" Saberhagen inquired. More blank stares gazed back at him. The wizard sighed, leapt off the counter onto the floor, and told them to follow him. They followed him up the stairs into what looked like a small classroom. A dozen chairs arranged in rows faced a smooth, vertical slate board. Saberhagen hopped up on a stool next to the board. A piece of chalk levitated off a small shelf and began drawing on the dark stone as Saberhagen talked slowly, as if he was addressing children. "We are on the material plane," Saberhagen began. The chalk drew a disc in perspective as if they were lying horizontally. "The center of all of the planes. All planes have touch points that overlap the material plane. At these touch points, whose location and time of existence may be fluid, one can transfer between planes. Around the material plane are elemental planes: air, water, earth, and fire. Between those are ice, mud, magma, and conflagration." The chalk drew large circles overlapping the first disc to illustrate the other planes. Above the material plane is the astral plane, where most of the so-called good gods reside. Below the material plane is the Shadowfell. This is where the bad gods are. "Which plane is the Raven Queen on?" Drusilla asked. "The Raven Queen is an enigma. The best anyone can guess, she exists between the planes," Saberhagen answered. "Cool," Drusilla said with pride. Saberhagen continued. "The Feywild is a parallel plane existing in the same time and space as the material plane." "How can it exist in the same place as the material plane and we don't see it?" asked Jory, feeling very confused. Saberhagen thought for a long moment on how to explain it to the inebriated halfling before answering with magic. Jory accepted the answer, and Saberhagen continued his lecture. "The Feywild is the easiest plane to survive in, but is still dangerous and unpredictable. The laws of nature, time, and magic that you're used to here on the material plane don't necessarily exist in the Feywild." "What's the greatest treasure in all the planes?" asked Diesa. "That depends who's asking," Saberhagen answered her. "A great treasure could be material wealth to one, or spiritual awakening to another, or absolute power to someone else." "Pretend it's a greedy rogue who's asking," Jory said to him. Saberhagen listed a few treasures, such as the genuine Bombay sapphire, legendary artifacts created by the gods and given to mortals, and the lost treasure of Bonlodier. So, how do we send someone there? Asked Salis. The touch points where the planes overlap this one are where you will find these portals to those planes. But the portals can be hard to find and may appear for one person and not to another. They may also be disguised as something ordinary. For instance, you could dive into a clear lake, and when you come up for air, suddenly you'll find yourself in the Feywild. Do you know where one of these touch points is? Asked Laura. Saberhagen said he did not, and also warned that memory loss was a common side effect when traveling to and from the Feywild. If I traveled back from the Feywild and remembered it, I'd write it down, Jory mused. I bet there's a magic user's diary in the library that would tell us where to find a touch point. Is Calavar powerful enough to teleport Rajat to the Feywild? Drusilla wondered. He does owe us a favor, Salis said. We should probably use that favor on the gnolls heading to Trademeet, said Diesa. So, 1. Go to the library to look for more information on touchpoints. 2. Ask Calavar to kill the gnolls. 3. Get Rajat to the Feywild in exchange for information about Alora's past, said Drusilla, counting off their latest to-do list. Sounds like a plan. To the library, said Salis. They followed Saberhagen to his inner sanctum, stepped into his teleportation circle, and in the blink of an eye found themselves in the Crystal Spire Library. Unlike Salis's last trip to the library, they did not have to seek out a librarian for assistance. The moment they appeared in the library's teleportation circle, they saw a gnome librarian walking towards them quickly. He smiled when he saw Salis. I was hoping that was you, Devon said as he handed her the carved wood Bahamut pendant. Why does he have your pendant? Drusilla asked Salis. When I was here sending the message to Solania, I gave it to him so he could enchant it for me. That was nice of him, smirked Diesa. I paid for it, said Salis, rebuking Diesa's insinuations. Are you a librarian? Jory asked Devon. Yes, I am, said Devon, pride evident in his voice. We need information on touch points, plane shifting, and anything related to traveling to the Feywild, Drusilla told Devon. Can you help us with that? I can't, but we do have an expert in our Fey section, Librarian Shipman. He might be able to help you, Devon answered, pointing in the direction of where they'd find him. They found Shipman sitting cross-legged on the floor with his back against a stack of books. He was an older human male with thinning gray hair and the skin tone of a man who spent as little time as possible in the sun. He was reading from a book in his lap while a floating quill dipped its tip in a floating ink pot and wrote in a floating book. Excuse me, are you Shipman? Salis asked. I'm working, the librarian answered curtly, without looking up. We're friends of Solania and Calavar, said Alora. I doubt that, Shipman replied, still not looking up from his book. We were told you were the library's expert on all things Fey, Drusilla said. Shipman looked up. I am that, he confirmed. We need to get someone to the Feywild before town burns down, Diesa blurted. The book, quill, and ink pot crashed to the floor. Shipman looked down at the upended ink pot with a frown and glared up at Diesa. I guess I'm not getting any more research done with you lot here, he sighed with resignation. He told them they needed to cast a spell of planar shift at a touch point using a planar fork that had been attuned to the Feywild. Where'd we get one? Asked Alora. Well, this is your lucky day, Shipman said. Not only am I an expert on the Feywild, I have several planar forks already attuned to the Feywild for the low cost of 250 gold. What if we needed to save a town from burning? Drusilla asked. 250 gold, Shipman repeated. Sensing Shipman's reluctance to talk to them, let alone help them, the Brunch Club bought the planar fork and left the library to seek out Calavar. After leaving the darkness of the book stacks and their eyes adjusted to the bright light of day, they noticed Calavar curled around the library's great crystal spire. Hey, Calavar! Drusilla shouted up. It's us! The bronze dragon slowly uncurled and dropped gently to the library steps with a single flap of its wings. I sense you are here to request a favor, Calavar said as he bent his head down towards them. What can I do for you? Drusilla told him about Rajat, the Flind, the Gnoll Shaman Fang, and the Gnoll Warband marching on trade meet. Calavar considered her words for a moment before answering. I will do this for you, and the favor I owe you will be paid. That's fair, Drusilla agreed. Well, shall we go kill some gnolls? He asked, lowering his great bulk down, allowing them to climb up his back. The Brunch Club failed to hide their excitement at being invited to ride into battle on the back of a dragon. As a large crowd began to gather around them, they scrambled up Calavar's scaled hide. When the dragon leapt into the air, they scanned the crowd, hoping the smug shipmen would see them. They clung onto Calavar, watching the ground speed past them in a blur. After a few hours, they saw 2 columns of 15 gnolls marching side by side. The flapping of the dragon's large wings alerted the warband to their arrival. The gnolls burst into a discordant harmony of yips and howls as they scrambled for their bows and spears. The gnolls' arrows were largely ineffectual against Calavar's thick scales. Only one managed to pierce the tip of his wing, but it did minimal damage. Calavar landed in front of them, drew in a deep breath, then exhaled a swirling bolt of lightning that crackled and popped towards the gnolls. The lightning arced from knoll to knoll down the right column, killing all 15 and leaving the Flynn severely wounded. Though in bad shape, the Flynn still held command over the rest of the gnolls. For the honor of Yinogu, he shouted as he hurled his spear at Calavar. The remaining gnolls hurled their spears and shot their arrows. Some of them managed to pierce Calavar's protective scales, but he ignored them. Feeling emboldened by their mighty ally, Salas slid off Calavar's back and fired her own lightning bolt at the Fang and the Flynn. The Fang seemed to take the brunt of the damage. The Flynn, though badly wounded, shook off Salas's attack. Salas realized she could not climb back up onto Calavar, so she scurried behind him and used his massive leg for cover. Drusilla stood up and fired a guiding bolt at the Flynn, burning him and causing him to glow with a purple aura, making it easier for the next attacker to strike him. Jory, not wanting to miss out on the fun, ran down Calavar's back, slid down his curving tail like it was a staircase banister, and landed in front of 2 gnolls who were trying to knock their next arrows. With a flurry of kicks and blows, Jory stunned both of them, then ran behind Calavar to hide by Salas. This is so much fun, he said, taking a deep pull of mead from his Boda bag. He offered it to Salas. Damn right it is, Salas agreed, taking a swig from the bag. They both ducked as Calavar's tail swung above their heads and slammed into the stunned gnolls, bludgeoning both of them to death. The dragon then advanced, lowering his head to the ground, and ripped the Flynn's arm off with his teeth before eviscerating him with a large, sharp claw. Alora, Diesa, and Drusilla all took aim at the Fang. Diesa's crossbow bolt missed, Alora's arrow pierced the Fang, injuring him further, and Drusilla's guiding bolt delivered the fatal blow. The remaining gnolls, frightened by Calavar's awesome presence and demoralized by the slaughter of their brethren and leaders, fled into the woods. Diesa and Jory chased 2 of them down, while Calavar took care of the rest. They piled the corpses in a heap, leaving them for the scavengers of the forest. Our tale will continue in episode 44. Episode 43 was written by Dominic White, Bethany Powers, and myself, Brian Messmer. The audio recording of our D&D game session that inspired this episode will be available on our podcast channel this Thursday under the name Brunch Club Live. Additional role-playing contributions to the story by Bethany Powers, who plays Diesa, J.P. Black, who plays Drusilla, Liz Richard, who plays Alora, Anna Flemke, who plays Salas, and Dominic White, who plays Jory. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by sharing it with your friends and rating and reviewing us on your favorite podcast platform. We really appreciate it. More information about Rescued by Dragons and ways to support and follow us can be found at rescuedbydragons.com. Thank you for listening, and please join me next week to see what my players' choices and the roll of the dice have in store.
After like a couple minutes go by, the massive dragon wrapped around the crystal spire that makes up the library shifts his head and he like looks directly at you like,
come here.
And you swear if you could see a dragon
roll
the size of a mansion
eyes.
roll its eyes.
I'm so sorry.
We're here to cash in our favor.
I I don't know how I expect. Like, this is so you guys. You guys hear some rumbling as this massive bronze dragon unwraps himself from around this crystal spire, gives like a flap of his wings, and sails down into the courtyard right in front of you. Ah, yes. Drusilla. I don't know who else I expected that to be.
I'm so sorry. Can I pet his nose?
You reach out and you pull, like...
May I pet your nose?
No.
I'm sorry.
Cast Charm Beast.
We have some issues.
I know, but what can I help you with? Actually...
There's a town in danger of being attacked by gnolls. They're going to be wiped out. We have our own issues that we're dealing with that may have caused that to happen, but we don't want innocent people to die because of it, and we're trying to solve it on one hand, but we can't solve all of it at the same time, and we don't want innocent people to die.
That's all well and good, but where do I come in?
Can you kill the gnolls for us?
There it is.
There it is.
Yes, I can.
And they have a flint?
Yes, I will still... We'll consider this even, though.
Actually, if you can save this town for us, that would be everything. We have a lot we need to handle on our own.
Are you sure, guys? I still think we can take them.
Nope. Please ignore that. It's a huge favor. We appreciate it.
Calavar, Guardian of Elnor, will cash in the favor you owe me and dispose of these gnolls. I have now saved your skin and this town. Well, I will, but we're even.
Thank you. Thanks.
How's it going here? Like, were you able to do everything you wanted to do?
That's going to take time, but things are definitely improving.
I see, like, the wizards haven't banded together to try to get rid of you,
A few
so that's
of them
something.
did, and they made a rather zesty snack.
Is the 5 still 5?
No, the 5 is now 1.
Solania?
Me.
Oh,
Wow.
Where's Solania?
Woo.
Oh, she's still around.
Oh, okay.
She's
It's just
an advisor.
Okay.
Just the two of you then.
No,
Well, no,
Just him.
Just you.
me and a few advisors. Now I have some gnolls to deal with. Are you staying or are you joining?
Let's ride on his back and go.
Can we? Can we get with you?
I will offer you the second chance of a lifetime.
Oh my god.
Thanks.
Oh my god, okay.
All right.
I feel like we owe him now.
Oh my god.
In
Oh
the
my God.
middle of the Crystal District, the dragon lowers himself down, and you guys all crawl on top of this gigantic bronze dragon.
We're on the steps of the Crystal Spire Library.
Yep.
Yeah, basically.
We sure are.
Have
many
librarians
people
come
have
out to
seen
watch
us
this?
We're talking to Calavar, no big deal.
Yeah.
Everyone has
I
seen
want
us do this, right?
motherfucking
There's
shit
I
in.
want Shipman to come out and
there's-
see this.
There's like
Yeah, where's Shipman at?
Can we ride by the
He doesn't
Shipman's
leave
in
the
the-
library.
Well,
He's such a
Just
loser.
pull up next
I mean,
to the window.
who's the journalist in this area? They're printing this
right.
paper,
Tell
right?
Shipman the Brunch Club says fuck you.